another Monday, and I am fresh off of my birthday. My birthday was yesterday. I am a ripe old 28 years old for the second time. Just kidding. I am not 28. I am 40 plus years old and celebrating another birthday. So come on in. Welcome again to Sip with Joy. If this is your first time joining, this is a show about a girl, her wine, and her feelings. And I am that girl. I am your host, Joy M. Hutton, lover of food and wine. And I am also a serial entrepreneur, and that is Gigi in the background acting a fool. And yeah, she wants to make her presence known today. So come on in, come on in. Don't make me come over there, Gigi. We are not doing this today, sister girl, okay? All right, so I'm excited about today's episode because I actually have my birthday twin with me. And before I get into that, I'm drinking a non alcoholic wine. So, for those of you who don't drink or you're doing dry January, I will probably never ever do a dry January because I like my wine. I like the real thing. So I'm not gonna even play myself on that. Okay. So welcome back, and I don't know why I can't get the episode up. Okay, here we go. So anyway, all right, hey guys, now I have my chat up. Okay, so this is a cava. It actually might be a rosé, but it is a sparkling wine nonetheless. And so it is by Rondell. And you know where I talk about this on the sip of the day. So if you're not following at Sip with Joy on Instagram, go ahead and do that so you can learn more about it. And Gigi, really see, this is what I have to deal with. So, Gigi, do you want to go time out? Because that's what we're going to do. I'm not playing with you right now. She never does this during one of my episodes. And so now, yeah, I'll deal with her in a second. So, yeah, let me go ahead, get our guests up here. Today's episode is called You Are Enough Because You Are. We're going to be talking about imposter syndrome with my girl Vanessa Parker, co founder of Divas in Defense, aka Pink Boss, if she's still using that, which I love that name. And we're going to get into it because, sometimes we just not always feeling like we're enough. So we're going to talk about it. So I'm going to bring Vanessa in. Vanessa Parker, hey girl. Uh oh, why can't I hear you? You still
Oh,
on mute.
I was all excited.
I know, right? Don't you hate it? It's like then you got to do it again.
Come again. Hey,
Hey,
girl.
girl.
Birthday.
Happy birthday, Twinsy. We literally have the same birthday, guys. We met, what, 7 years ago.
Yes.
And we were paired together, and then we found out that we both had the same birthday, and we've been inseparable since. So,
Yeah.
love Vanessa. Love, love, love Vanessa. So, tell us about you, Vanessa.
Ooh, okay. So many things. So my name is Vanessa Parker. I'm the co-founder of Divas in Defense. We teach self-defense training for women and girls here in Atlanta. We have 4 trainers in different cities. We have a trainer in LA, Birmingham, and 2 in Atlanta. Um, and I also am, she mentioned the Pink Boss. So Pink Boss was a business where I helped women that wanted to have full-time jobs, that wanted to start a side hustle. But over the years, I've let it go. I think that I am finally okay with saying that it no longer served me, and it's okay. And so
Yes.
focusing on Divas in the Fence now.
You're still my pink boss.
I'm still keeping the name
Yes.
part of my identity.
Yes, you are still my pink boss. So I love it. I love it. And Divas in Defense is an awesome business too. Okay, so we're gonna get into it. Talk about imposter syndrome because this has come up so much, and I honestly, I, I, I knew the symptoms of it, but I didn't know what it was called,
Yeah.
right? And now people have put a name to it. So can you tell us what imposter syndrome is?
Yes. So imposter syndrome is feeling like a fraud. It is doubting your successes. Um, in layman terms, of feeling that your internal feelings don't match your outward feelings. For example, you've won an award and you don't feel like you deserve it. You
Mhm.
got promoted at work or asked to do a presentation in front of a bunch of people at work, and you're like, why would they choose me? There's no reason that they chose me. Well, they chose you because been doing the work, right? And
Mhm.
so oftentimes the internal way that you feel about yourself does not match the external validation that people are giving you.
Right.
Yeah. So in 1978, here in Georgia, it was called imposter phenomenon. It was two
Mm.
doctors, Dr. Suzanne Imes and gosh, I forgot the other lady's name, Clance. So they did a study for over 150 women. They followed them throughout the years, and these were high achieving women. We're talking about doctoral degrees, master's degrees. And they discovered that these women, over the course of those years, even with that higher education, even
Mhm.
with dissertations that have been published, books that have been published, they felt like frauds.
Wow.
And they called it imposter phenomenon. So that's where the original word has come from. It is now transferred into imposter syndrome. It is not a disease.
Yes. Right. It is not a mental illness.
Not
You
the
know,
mental,
folks always want to, right. It's not a mental illness.
but the true term was imposter phenomenon. And so that's where the origin of the whole terms all came from.
Right. Okay. Okay. All right. So why is imposter syndrome often associated with women? You don't really hear people talk about men and imposter syndrome. It's always women.
Yeah, men do have it. I do feel like um, now men are being a little bit more vulnerable. And I think it is associated with women because typically we are the ones who are overachievers,
Mhm.
overthinkers, and self doubters.
Right.
Men experience imposter syndrome in a different kind of way. And I think that, one, we're the ones who are more vocal about it. It wasn't until the past 5 or 6 years that there was even a word or a buzz thing about it. Um,
Mhm.
and I think the women, because we're more vulnerable, usually we're the ones that kind of brought it to the forefront. So I think that's why it's been more connected to us. But
Right.
men feel imposter syndrome. Don Cheadle has done interviews and talked about it. Um, so many other men, famous men, have now been documented saying they experience imposter syndrome. But
Mhm.
I do think that we have allowed space for men to be a little bit more vulnerable.
Right. That's interesting that you say that because I think now men are feeling like they have more of a safe space to talk about these things, and we're also creating those spaces for them too, right? But I think we still have a little ways to go.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Well, applaud the men, but we got some ways to go.
We still got a little ways to go, okay? um, can imposter syndrome be seen as a positive thing?
Yes. So imposter syndrome is typically associated with people that are high achievers or
Mm-hmm.
people that are high achievers are people that have also strive for more, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can't really be an imposter or have those imposter fraud feelings if you're not achieving things.
Right.
If you do feel imposter syndrome, it's probably because you're trying to go to another level. You've been promoted, or someone's recognizing you for something, and they're recognizing you based on the work you've done, right? And so,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, noise in the background, but they are. So the positive part is, if you are feeling that, know that you're right on the right track, right?
Yeah.
You're doing something new. You are being recognized for something, right? So it's important that we have to remember next level brings next things, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
that that's how you kind of turn it into a positive. I don't think you can ever really get rid of it. We can talk
Right.
about that a little bit later. But I do think there are tools to help us combat it. And if you have those feelings, that mean you're working towards something bigger.
You know, it's interesting that you say that. It's like, okay, yes, I'm working towards something bigger. I'm being stretched outside of my comfort zone, but I'm scared, or I have doubts that I'll be able to achieve this goal or whatever. Like, you know, we over here, we're recovering perfectionists, right?
Yeah.
I'm still recovering, but it's that thing like, yes, okay, I'm being stretched, and yes, okay, I obviously got this opportunity because I'm smart, I'm this, I'm that, but at the same time, there's fear that comes with that. There's doubt. So I hear what you're saying, and spinning it to the positive, which I like that because imposter syndrome is always seen as a negative thing. So, but it's like, ooh, that those feelings are still very real in terms of you thinking that you're not enough.
Yeah, I mean, one, we are our worst critic, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Especially as women, especially high achieving women. We set the bar so high. We would never set the bar that high for anyone else but ourselves. And so we set the bar so high that it's actually unachievable. So no
Mm.
wonder we have fears because half of the stuff that we're striving for is really unachievable. Perfectionism is not a real thing. But
Right.
most of us, we want perfectionism as our relationships, our
Mm.
jobs, our parenting,
Right.
and it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So I do think that self-doubt is something that I do think it's a muscle you can help to overcome it.
Mm-hmm.
But I it's just part of our bringing. It's a part of our of who we are as women.
Yeah. Ooh, that's good, girl. That perfectionism is real. Hey D. Hey again, Darika. Hopefully the volume is good now. Said that Vanessa's volume is fine. Mine is low, so hopefully we fix that. Okay. Next question. So I know you talked about when imposter syndrome started in 1978, like the imposter phenomenon. Why is why is it such a popular topic of discussion now?
I think celebrities made it a little popular again.
Mm.
It had a rise, right? Imposter phenomenon died down, and it's so interesting because it was a study done in 1978. Even the women, I think Dr. Imes still practices, and she did an interview maybe a few years ago. It was like, I
Mm-hmm.
can't believe people are still talking about this.
Right.
I think celebrities kind of have made it a little bit more popular because they're being interviewed and saying the words. It's like they gave us verbiage that we didn't know we had. We knew
Mm.
we had the symptoms. We knew it didn't feel right, but we weren't quite sure about what the verbiage was. The reason why I started talking about it is I was speaking at an event. I got accepted to speak at an event
Mm-hmm.
and told my girlfriend, "Oh my God, I feel like a fraud. Why did they pick me?" And she's like, "Oh, that's imposter syndrome." I had never heard that term before.
Yeah.
And literally a few weeks later, my girlfriend sent me a video. Viola Davis literally had, I'm gonna hold my water, literally had an Oscar in her hand. She had got off stage from winning it. And
Mm-hmm.
ABC, and you can Google this, an
Yeah.
ABC correspondent stopped her and interviewed her and said, "Oh my God, how do you feel?" And she said, "I feel like a fraud."
Mm.
With her Oscar in her
In
hand.
her hand. In
I
her
mean,
hand.
what level do you have to get to?
Yeah.
Having an Oscar does not validate the work that you've done.
Mm.
And I literally, from that day, I was on a mission for the next 3 years of just talking to people about imposter syndrome, asking people about it, doing the research on it. It's so amazing to see so many people. I mean, in Will Smith's book, he talks about it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, Michelle Obama talks about it all the
Yeah.
time. I mean, so I do think that celebrities interviewing and being vulnerable and using the terminology has then given us terminology like, oh my God, that's actually how I've been feeling, but I
Right.
never knew I never knew
What
there
it
was
was
words.
called. Yeah. It's always putting labels to it. But like you said, I think it's also important that we're using it in the right context because
Right.
it's like, okay, just because you're overachiever doesn't mean it's imposter syndrome. Just because you're, overthinking something or have doubt, that doesn't mean it's imposter syndrome. It's a little deeper than that,
Yeah.
because a lot of times we just misuse things because it is popular. So I'm glad that you said that. So speaking of some of the things that are associated with it, I think one of them is self-sabotage.
Yes.
Can you speak to that?
Yes. Self sabotage happens so much, especially in spaces where we don't feel like we're enough,
Mm.
right? You again, same thing as we talked about earlier, your internal feelings about yourself are not matching the external validation or
Mm-hmm.
the accomplishments you're getting. And
Yeah.
it's such a we talk when we say it talk about it right now, it may seem trivial, right?
Mm-hmm.
But literally there is a disconnect on the work I'm doing and the spaces I have seats at the table and how I internally feel about myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So self sabotage is just that. It's sabotaging how we identify, how we view ourselves, right?
Mhm.
And we do it all the time. And it's really sad. I mean, something as simple as what giving someone a compliment. Oh my God, Joy, I love that shirt you have on. And you say, oh, this thing, I got it from like the thrift.
Right.
Like we downplay those things,
Yeah.
and we can't even accept the compliment. We can't
Mhm.
accept the award. We can't accept the validation. And so self sabotage to me is at the root of
Mm.
imposter syndrome. It's at the root of us not being able to toot our own horns,
Yeah.
or feeling like we have spaces where we can brag about ourselves, that we can
Mhm.
talk about our accomplishments.
Well, you said something earlier. We are our own worst critics.
We are.
And it's so sad, but it's like you said, self sabotage is at the root of that. And then we also have to kind of dig deeper to where that comes from too, right? It's like, was it your childhood? Were you forced to be an overachiever in your childhood? Where did you have fear of failure when you were younger and things like that? So I think it's really digging to see where these things come from.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
I think social media has made it even worse.
Oh yes.
I mean, there was a time that I had no idea where you may have vacations for your birthday or
Mm. Mhm.
your kids for spring break, right? And so I thought I did a great job of saving my money and taking my kids to Disney, and you took your kids to South Africa,
Right. Mhm. Right.
right? So I
Right.
do think that comparison part of things has made us even more self sabotage, right? It's
Mm.
like I want to feel proud of myself, but then I look over at my sister or my girlfriend who I think may be my equal, and it looks like she's doing more than me,
Right.
right? And I just think that that increases our lack of confidence in ourselves,
Mhm.
and we're not recognizing our own power, right? And because we are so focused on what someone else is doing, and it's easy to be like, "Oh, girl, I'm not worried." But you are worried about what people are doing.
Right.
The space that we're in. When we're in social media, we follow the same like-minded people. That means I
Yeah.
follow people in my exact industry, right?
Mhm.
So I'm comparing myself to people who are in that lane, but there are so many other people,
Yes.
right? And so I just think that social media has made it even worse. So
It
it's
has.
so crazy. Like, and like for me now, if I scroll and I feel like I'm comparing myself or whoever I'm
Mhm.
looking at makes me, I don't care if it's a celebrity, I don't care if it's an everyday woman, I'm unfollowing it.
Yeah. Right,
Follow it.
because it's not making you feel good about yourself.
You feel good.
Yeah.
Myself, like, why am I not feeling good?
Yeah.
Right? And where is that coming from?
I think that's important for your mental health because the comparison, the art of comparison is real,
Yes.
and I've heard other people do that same practice. Like if something doesn't feel good to you when you are scrolling, and it may not be that you don't like that person because sometimes I'm like, oh, people may have stopped following me. Okay, well, I don't take it personally. That's on
Right.
you, whatever. But if something is not making you feel good about yourself, then you have to cleanse yourself of that,
Yes.
but it's real, that comparison thing, because it's like, I was talking about this last week, like I, turning 42, and I'm like, man, I feel like I should be in a different place right now. I thought I was gonna have, 3 kids, be married, all these things, and looking at people that do have those things, I can't compare myself to them. Our paths are completely different,
Right.
you know
Right. And then those women, and again, not downplaying anyone's space or their position,
right.
but those women may be looking at you like, oh my God, I want the freedom of having a business. I want the freedom of
Exactly.
deciding what I eat every night and not having to
Right.
figure it
Right. We always want what we don't have. It's like, girl, you don't know my struggles.
out. So it's just interesting. I hope that, I don't know, and I worry about our young girls in social media,
Mhm.
um, because it is such a part of our lives. Like for us, we know that some of this stuff is fake,
Yeah,
right? Like,
definitely.
but for our young girls, I am concerned about what imposter syndrome, self doubt, all those things are going to do, what social
Mhm.
media is going to do and increase that.
Yeah. So, how can we overcome imposter syndrome? I know you said like it's not really something that we can completely get rid of, but how do you think we can overcome it?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is to realize it is something that typically does not go away.
Mhm.
I mean, y'all, Michelle Obama just did an interview and she said she had imposter syndrome. I mean,
Yeah. Right. You like, girl, you Michelle Obama. What?
Right. So I don't
Bye,
think it goes.
girl.
I do think that you have tools, right? And then you can
Yeah.
recognize it. So the
Mhm.
first thing I think is recognizing that you're not alone. This conversation alone, if you're listening, you can put yourself in one of these boxes. You know how this feels. You felt this before.
Mhm.
Statistics say that 70% of Americans have felt or will feel imposter syndrome.
Right.
And so I do believe just identifying, name a thing, right? Like identifying that you're not alone and this is a real thing.
Right.
I think the other thing is to recognize what you do well, right? And so um, when you do have self doubt, reminding yourself, so writing a list down of your strengths,
Mhm.
because oftentimes that self doubt comes from us again not internalizing the external things that are happening.
Yeah.
So write those external things down. I am
Mhm.
not a good business owner. Okay, well, I just got 5 contracts.
Yeah.
You got to debunk your own
Counter it with a positive thing.
creed. Another way is to change how you talk to yourself,
Mm.
right? We talk to ourselves all day long, and most of it is negative.
Yeah.
Check. So I challenge anyone on this call for the rest of this week, think about when you're saying something and you say something negative to yourself, catch it. I'm not saying, it doesn't make you bad. Most of us do it all day long, but
Mhm.
just to recognize it and then learn to reframe.
Right.
Like, like me, I've gained a lot of weight over the pandemic. I'm trying to figure out a workout that I like. I'm been going up and down in my diet. And my birthday was yesterday, so people were taking all these pictures, and I could feel myself getting upset. Like,
Yeah.
I see a lot of pictures. I don't really feel that.
Right.
And then I said to myself, girl, you're beautiful. Like,
Mhm.
we all gained weight. Who cares?
Exactly. Who ain't weight during the pandemic? Shit.
But it's like I caught myself and
Mhm.
I reframed it, right? And so
Yeah.
reframing those negative thoughts, because unfortunately they're going to come, right? We're not perfect. We're not going to not completely get rid of those thoughts, but
Mhm.
time to reframe. The last tip I will say, and I tell people this, I wish I would have brought it with me, is create yourself a fraud box, an anti-fraud box.
Mm.
Any kind word someone has said to you, an article you've been in, a picture of an event that you spoke at, or whatever you've done in your life, right? Promotions. Take those things and put them in a box. So I got a
Mm.
Tiffany's box at home. I throw all my stuff in.
Mhm.
So that when you're feeling like a fraud, when those feelings come up, grab that box and remind yourself, pull that stuff out. Because it happened 10 years ago, you think it's not relevant? It's relevant. You're still the same person, right? So
Right.
pull those things out to remind yourself. I had did a session about imposter syndrome before, and a woman said she does a wind wall. So if you don't want to do the box, get you a cork board or something.
Yeah.
As you win at things, big or small, tack it up there so
Mhm.
that when you walk by, you can remind yourself of all the great accomplishments you've done. Because
Yeah.
again, it's internal feelings that's not matching that external validation. So match
Mhm.
it, right? So being able to see it, sometimes we're visual, right? And to remind
Right.
ourselves that way.
Hype yourself up. You know, it's interesting that you say the win wall because it's like if you go to an event and people are asking, introduce yourself, tell us your accomplishments, and people are like, oh, I'm just,
Yeah.
and it's like, no, you worked hard to get to where you are.
Yes.
It's not braggadocious, it's not cocky, it's not arrogant for you to talk about where you've been, what you've accomplished, and it's like we have to get out of that. Celebrate your wins. You worked hard for that.
Yes. I mean, even right now, even though I teach imposter syndrome, I've been talking about this for 5, 7 years, right?
Mhm.
I still deal with it. I recently got a great contract. My girlfriend referred me.
Mhm.
Great contract, probably the biggest contract I've had in a while, and it's like stretched me. Like it's like the perfect contract, right? And I was doubting myself, like, oh, I only got it because she gave me my referral.
Mm.
Okay, but one, I had to be doing some kind of work for her to know to refer me,
Exactly.
right? So yeah, she brought me to the table, but I had to present myself. I had to prepare
Yeah.
a proposal. I had to work the project, right?
Mhm.
When you're thinking, for example, like you have favor ain't fair sometimes, right?
Favor ain't fair.
Someone brings you to the table, but they wouldn't bring you to the table if you had not been doing this work,
Right.
right? And so recognizing that Just because someone has helped you along the way does not make you a fraud. It doesn't mean that you don't belong.
Right. Absolutely. I love that. Because yeah, we think of a million and one excuses about why we shouldn't be somewhere, and it's like, why? Because you're looking at somebody else and can celebrate them, so celebrate yourself.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, what else? I know we had talked about there was a study or there was something you were going to say earlier about imposter syndrome not existing, I think.
Yeah. So let's back up. The study that was done was in 1978.
Mm-hmm.
It was 150 highly educated white women.
Mm.
So there is some space and talks about. So I think in 2021 there was a Heart of a Business review, and these two women wrote an article about imposter syndrome being unreal, and that what's real is racism, microaggression that has labeled us as imposters and frauds when really it's because the environments aren't safe for us.
Hmm.
Now, I believe those two things can exist in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
I believe that
Mm-hmm.
microaggression and racism has never allowed us to sit at the table. And I understand why those doctors did the study on white women in 1978. Let's just be real. In
Right.
1978, there were probably not as many
Yeah.
black women or brown women with
Mm-hmm.
master's degrees and doctoral degrees that were
Right.
available for that study. Let's just be
Mm-hmm.
real.
Yeah.
Those two women are white. So when you're doing the study,
Mm-hmm. Right.
so I'm not mad at them,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
let's just recognize what the time was. If we did a
Mm-hmm.
study right that now, it would be different.
Exactly.
Um, but I do believe imposter syndrome exists.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the symptoms, and you can take your own test. So there is an imposter phenomenon test. You can Google it that they created in 1978
Mm-hmm.
that people still take today. And so when
Hmm.
I do a lot of my training around it, I get the audience to take it, men and women, and it tells them if they have those feelings or not, right?
Right.
So I'm not trying to debunk anyone. That's their opinion. They don't feel like it
Yeah.
exists. I don't agree. I do agree that those two things can exist in the world. I do think that um, what we what they said in the article is we should stop labeling imposter syndrome as a problem, an individual problem. It is a systematic problem that
Mm-hmm.
is not allowing us to have a seat at the table. I agree with that as well.
Yeah, I agree with all of it, but it's definitely some layers to this
Yes,
because
and
it's
you really can
definitely
feel like a fraud.
yeah, it's systematic, but it's also individualistic because some something like imposter syndrome does not necessarily start at the the macro level. It starts at the micro level. Like it can start at home when you were 5.
Right.
You know, or it could be something you develop when you graduated from college and you entered to the workplace for the first time. So I think it's levels to it.
Agree.
So that's interesting though.
Yeah. So great argument, and
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
And then again, back to your point, right? It started off as a word imposter phenomenon. Now it's imposter fraud. People don't like the word fraud because fraud feels like I'm a criminal. Um, you know what I mean? So like
The
it,
places our minds go to.
the labeling becomes a
Yeah.
problem for
Yeah.
people, and I get it. I'm just glad that we're having the discussion,
Yeah.
right? Because um, I can recognize another tool too is if you, especially as a leader, people who are listening to this call, right? You're a leader, you manage a team, or you're a business owner, you manage a team of people. Especially if a lot of women on your team, let me tell you, they have imposter syndrome.
Mm.
Lift them up.
Yeah.
Be a little bit vulnerable. Let them know when you're feeling those fraud feelings, right?
Yeah.
And so I think part of being women is we're community driven. We're
Mhm.
community builders. Reach back and help that coworker, that person, the person you're leading, to help them help them understand and match their internal feelings with the validation that they
Right.
are they are enough, right? And I think that's our
Mhm.
responsibility too.
Absolutely. Hey Alicia, hey Tiffany. It is, and I'm glad that you said like you don't you don't know who's sitting at that table. Everybody could be experiencing the same thing, but we're not as vocal about it because you don't want to appear weak. You don't want to appear, vulnerable. But there are women now having these conversations. I literally before we it no actually I think it was after I had asked you to do the episode on this topic because I was like, oh my god, this is the perfect person to have this conversation with. And Allie Webb, who is the founder of Dry Bar, was having a conversation about imposter syndrome. And the woman asked her, well, what do you do when someone says they feel like an imposter? And her spin was on the positive, like you were talking about earlier, like you can spin it into a positive. But she was saying, that's a good thing if you feel like you're an imposter, because that means that you're doing something that you've never done before, and you're basically stretching yourself. You're growing, and
Yeah.
so it's challenging ourselves to think about these things, like you said, not in a negative light, but in a positive light, because we always
Right.
just think about things negatively. So same reason, or when we were talking about earlier, like saying you are enough versus you are not enough. It has
Right.
two different connotations. You may be saying the same thing, but in a different way. And so thinking of this in a positive way and really pulling out your strengths from the imposter syndrome and challenging yourself, as opposed to cowering down, and backing down. So I think it's a really important topic.
Yeah. I again, who I'm really concerned about is our young girls. I mean, I know we have it right, but I
Mhm.
do feel like our young girls are coming up in this space of perfectionism at like a time.
Yes.
My mentee was telling, like, for her birthday, she's trying to go to Cabo. I'm like, girl, you 22. Like,
Mm.
and I'm
Right.
saying to go to Cabo. I'm just saying,
Right.
like,
Right.
don't be swayed by what you're seeing on
On
social.
social media.
All of those things, right? You said something that I want to go back to is having a beginner's mindset at
Mhm.
whatever stage and whatever age we're in. We should want to be beginners in spaces.
Yeah.
It helps us grow, but for some reason, especially I am a true Capricorn, I don't like to look stupid.
Girl, me too.
Well, I don't like to look stupid, but I
Yeah.
recognize that that hindered me from trying and doing things
Mhm.
because I didn't want to look stupid. You're not looking stupid. You look new.
Right. You're learning
What's wrong with learning?
and not
Who
knowing.
who wants to be? I mean, think about the people you want to be around. I don't want to be around someone who just knows everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't want to be that person.
Mhm.
So just adopting a beginner's mindset. I think that's
Yeah.
how we tackle and try to stretch ourselves.
Absolutely. Let's see. Darika said, I think people place too much value in what they do instead of who they are. They may be unsuccessful in their personal life, so they feel unworthy of success in their professional life.
Woo! Yes, let's talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
We are not all or nothing.
Yes. Ooh, say that again, girl.
You mess up at work,
Mm.
do something wrong, and so you're a bad employee forever?
Right.
Like,
Right.
no, we're not one or nothing. We're gonna make mistakes,
Yeah.
right? And what she said, focusing on what we do. Now, let's there's some speech, there's some plate, there's some space to talk about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're told to find a job with passion and do these things with passion, right? And so those things become our identity.
Mm-hmm.
We do have to remember that these are jobs, these are businesses, these don't always have to be who we are, right?
Right.
Our makeup is all the things that we do, right? And so we're not all or nothing.
Yeah.
Give yourself space to be different in different places, right? Doesn't mean you're not authentically you and all of that, but like
Mm-hmm.
you aren't. Again, you make one mistake and we are like the worst. I made one mistake and I'm the worst business owner.
Yeah.
Like if we did that, we'd never achieve anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like I do think that's the difference between men and women. Though.
Yeah.
Men to me are, um, they believe that failing is just part of the process,
Mm-hmm.
and for us, failing is something that stops us in the process. So we've got
Mm.
to learn to accept that's part of the process. We never get to the win if we don't get to the failure, and I
Mm.
think
I
that is
like that.
that's that all or nothing feeling.
Yeah. Ooh, we never get to the win if we don't get to the failure. Ooh,
Yes.
girl, I hope y'all need to write that down. I love that. You got to fail forward, as they say.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, now it's time for our rapid fire.
Oh Lord.
It's not. It's painless. It's painless. I promise. Okay. Let's see. So you answer the first one that comes to your mind. Okay. Home Alone or Out with Friends?
Oh, it depends. Home Alone.
Cupcake or birthday cake?
Birthday cake.
Leather pants or pink pants?
Pink pants.
I know you with these questions, right? Okay, mimosa or glass of wine?
Glass of wine.
Okay, movie night or cooking class?
Movie night.
Work from home or work in the office?
Work from home.
Introvert or extrovert?
Introvert with a capital I.
Oh man, beach vacay or something adventurous?
Beach vacay.
It's so fun to do these with people I know because I'm like, I already know what she's gonna say.
So if we lie, you're gonna be like, girl, you lying.
I'm like, stop playing. We are literally birthday twins, and this is my accountability partner, but it's also the blind leading the blind, y'all. We can't help each other to save our lives.
No, it's so funny. You're like, girl, what do you think? I think the exact same thing as you.
I'm calling Vanessa asking for her help and vice versa. And we just, girl, will check in another month and see if we've done better. Oh my gosh, it's so toxic.
Love it.
But you gotta have someone that understands because it's like, I know I'm not crazy for thinking this way,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, and we have had some very vulnerable conversations, but you can't have those conversations with everyone. And so, even in talking about imposter syndrome, if you are feeling like that, you need to have someone that you can talk to about it. If it's a fellow friend, if it's a fellow entrepreneur, if it's a fellow coworker, whatever, therapist, because it can weigh on you very heavily, you know.
Hinder
So,
you from exceed. It will hinder you from taking that job
yes,
all the time, right, Joy? Like women will apply for a job. They will not apply for a job if they don't meet 100% of the job description.
yes.
Have you seen lately? I don't know if you look for any jobs, but have you seen lately? Like now, there's been a blurb on certain jobs that are like, do not feel like you have to meet 100% of these job descriptions.
Oh
No,
wow.
we're writing that for women.
And they lying. They still lying because they still ain't gonna hire you.
Well, that's not the point of what I was saying.
No, I know. I know. But it's encouraging people to not feel like they're not good enough for that job, which I appreciate
A
that.
man will look at 3 items and
And
be like,
apply.
"Oh, I got
And
that."
ask for more money. Knowing he ain't qualified. He's like, I'm not qualified for this job. I don't care. And I'm asking for more money. We have to, but it is a reprogramming and
Yes,
shift in our mindset that has to happen. So I'm really glad that you are here to talk about these things because a lot of the times, we just think it's stuff. It's in our head. It's like, no, it's just I have low self-esteem or low self-confidence. It goes deeper than that.
right.
Why do you have low self-esteem or low self-confidence, or so I think these are super important conversations to have. I know people are like, why are we talking about this tonight? Listen, y'all know I be talking about all things, okay? But I think, we're going into, I was saying to you earlier, I'm like, everybody wants to go into a new year, new me, new year, new this, all that. But really, the days are just rolling over into each other. You want to press reset on January, and you want to feel like a brand new person, but that doesn't just happen on January 1st.
Problem did not reset.
It did not reset. Your problem didn't say, oh, January 1st, I'll go away. No, it's not going to go away. Them days and rolled over into each other, okay? So, but we hope, we are optimistic about this year being better than the last, but it just doesn't reset on January 1st. Problems are still there. So,
Right.
I think that these conversations are good to have, and especially at the beginning of the year, right? When people are feeling down, when people are trying to reset. So it's rethinking about shifting your mindset about these
Yeah.
things.
These are times that people are, because they want to reset, they're looking for new employment.
Yeah.
They're starting businesses.
Mhm.
They are starting that workout plan, right? They're
Yeah.
doing all the things. They're making resolutions.
Mhm.
And I'm not hating on resolutions. Make your resolutions. Don't be listening to these Facebook gurus that you can have a and you can go to the gym
Right. On January 1st,
first.
2nd.
Okay. So I think it is important. I think this is a great way to start the year because these are times that we, in order to reinvent ourselves, so we do have to take stock and inventory of how we're feeling.
Yeah.
Are we in this place? And how do we really feel? Do we know what our strengths are? If not,
Mhm.
another thing right before we go, because I know we're going soon, is if you feel like you have imposter syndrome in a space, change it or
Mm.
go get information around it. For example, if you're people ask you to keep being a public speaker and you feel like, oh my God, I'm not the best speaker, go to join Toastmasters.
Mhm.
If you feel like you got to have a certification to be whatever
Mhm.
business coach, you've been doing it all the time. Now all of a sudden you think you need a certification because that's
Right.
women, especially Black women, we think we have to overly educate ourselves to do the thing.
Mhm.
Then go get the certification. Like
Right.
combat the imposter syndrome with some action.
Yeah.
If there is something that you're feeling an imposter in, then combat it with some action.
Yes.
Debunk that feeling with doing something.
Mhm. I love that. Final words for our people and where we can find you.
Yes. So final words is be have a beginner's mindset.
Mhm.
I think all of this starts with knowing that even imposter syndrome, if this is the first time you've heard that term, research it, talk to it amongst your girlfriends. Start things as a beginner mindset, knowing that you're not going to master it, but you can learn more about it.
Yeah.
You'll find me on all things social. I'm at the Pink Boss, where I share my life, my business stuff, all the things I do, and I am unapologetically doing all the things. I am
Yes.
like Oprah and have 50,000 things, and I don't care. So you can find me on at the Pink Boss and see all the things that I do.
Oh my God, I love it. I'm telling you, y'all, this is my twin because we both we're like you have added another thing to your plate. Why? Why do we do this to ourselves? It's very toxic behavior. We have done this to ourselves. But here's the thing: we will get it done. Like people are like, "How do you sleep?" I don't know. It happens. I get 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night, and still manage to do all 28 things on my list. You know, something may not be getting 100%.
The theme today is get you some Capricorn friends.
Right. It's the perfect time. We are still in Capricorn season, people, so get your life. Yes, if you don't have any Capricorn friends, get you one. Moral of the story. I love you so much. Thank
Love
you for
you.
joining me today. This was a great discussion. I think people need to hear this. People not typing in the chat today. They quiet. They're like, okay, well, let me take some notes here. I know y'all taking notes. It's okay. You ain't got to talk to me today. But this is a very important conversation to have. So I'm glad that we have it. Hopefully, people were taking notes, and we're gonna shift our mindset because you are enough. All
Yes, you.
right, follow at the Pink Boss. Follow Vanessa Parker on at the Pink Boss. And I will see you guys back here next week. Next week is my 50th episode. Ah, I know.
And
50th
you
episode,
started off
girl.
as a beginner. Look at you, and now you're at 50.
I know, girl. Listen, I told Vanessa before I got on this call, though. I'm like, listen, I wanted to throw this whole thing away. I'm tired, y'all. But I'm continuing to show up because it's not this. There is a purpose in all of this, and y'all keep listening to me week after week, so it must be something I'm doing right. So thank you, Vanessa, and thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.